Tonight's episode deals with one of the many films I believe all film buffs need to see. I'll be doing a few of these episodes in coming months. It's just one of those movies that, if you honestly consider yourself a true appreciator of the art of film, you have to have seen. Here's your damn rant show, folks. Greetings, I am E. Adam Thomas, and this is Film Rants. Tonight's film is Failsafe, Sidney Lumet's dark and terrifying Cold War thriller about a series of human errors that trigger a possible global thermonuclear war. Starring Henry Fonda, Walter Matthau, and Larry Hagman, this 112-minute film has been heralded as one of the best and most underrated films of its time. Part of the reason it was so underrated is due to Stanley Kubrick's popular Cold War satire, Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, which was released earlier the same year, 1964. It's worth noting that this was not by accident. Both films were in production at the same time, and Kubrick, at the time having a little bit more pull with Columbia Studios, wanted his film released earlier. Both films were based on somewhat similar novels, and there was a plagiarism lawsuit between the authors of these novels at the time. The fact remains, however, that despite the similarities, these were distinctly independent works. Nonetheless, due to Kubrick's insistence that his film be released earlier, audiences were confused by Failsafe, and the box office receipts were dismal. This is one of my biggest pet peeves with the film industry and the public at large. The film that makes the biggest noise gets the money, even if it is not as good as another film released at the same time or about the same thing. In recent years, it's gotten even worse. Most of the popular films these days are based on well-worn franchises like Star Trek, X-Men, Marvel comic series, while other singular films that stand alone as unique and unconnected to a series get overlooked. Some, like Blade Runner and Big Trouble in Little China, do go on to be cult hits, but most are relegated to obscurity and are never seen again except in cinema history classes or classic film revivals. Failsafe deserves a lot better. I realize that if you're looking for a nuclear war movie with lots of carnage and explosions and special effects, it's not going to satisfy. There is absolutely none of that in Failsafe. The odd thing is, without all that, Failsafe succeeds even more at bringing you to the edge of a nervous breakdown. It's about the acting and the believability. One thing modern audiences have trouble relating to is the fact that it deals with a possible atomic war. Nowadays, we're worried about terrorists blowing up a heavily populated building and killing a few thousand civilians, such as what happened at 9/11. Most of you don't even think about the fact that the US, China, Russia, and a laundry list of other countries that really don't like each other still have about 19,000 nuclear weapons in their arsenals. It used to be worse, granted. At one time we had about 70,000. But even still, 19,000 is still enough to wipe out all life on our miserable little space rock about 1,000 times over. We're living on a fucking powder keg, and most of us don't even care. In 1964, 2 years after the Cuban Missile Crisis, we sure as fuck cared. Even then, most of the populace were never really sure just how close we came to being wiped out as a species. Sidney Lumet cared, and this film shows it. It's a gripping, not in the stomach, shit your pants film with some of the best writing and acting in the history of cinema. Now, there are some technical issues with the film, due in part to budgetary constraints and to the fact that the U.S. military refused to assist in its making. But these issues are completely forgivable. This is not a popcorn movie. It's a think about your life and how goddamn fucking lucky you are to have it movie. If you're a total douche who can't watch a film unless it's in color, with tits, explosions, and infantile banter, then fine. Don't watch it. I wouldn't want to bruise what few delicate little underpowered brain cells you have left after that kegger last weekend, where you got so drunk you puked in a neighbor's pool and date raped a fire hydrant. However, if you are a fan of good filmmaking, good acting, and suspense, I highly recommend this film. I also recommend Strangelove, but I'll cover that film in another episode. Moving on to the Rantometer, Failsafe gets a 5 for artistic because between the cinematography and the performances of the actors, you are drawn into the realism of this film from frame one. I can only give it a 3 on coolness because it's not a cool film. It's a thoughtful film, and if you don't like to think, you won't like it. Originality gets a 5 because there has never been a film like this before, ever in the history of cinema. I very grudgingly give it 1 razor blade on the suck factor, only because of the fact that there are some basic errors in the actual tactical technology of the time, although most of it is easier to spot in retrospect due to the fact that they were treading a fine line on some classified information at the time. That gives Failsafe a respectable 12 rating in total. That should give you an idea as to how hard it is to get a perfect score on this show. If you have a film you think I should rate, comment on this video below, or blast me your thoughts on Twitter, Facebook, or Google Plus using the hashtag FilmRantsEAT. You should also subscribe to the Angry Men Reviews channel and check out the videos of my cohorts, Angry Andy of the Fuck It team, and Uncle Drew. Remember, we have thousands of thermonuclear bombs underground, and all it would take is one twisted fuck to blast us all to cinders. There's a lullaby to soothe you to sleep. Have a good night.